So as far as we understand, the people of Ukraine are related to the Germans and to the Russians. Geographically, they're in between them, and they have elements from both of them. And the people of the Ukrainians, we identify them as having elements from the Canaanites and from the people of Edom, and also from the elements of Magog and others. And historically, they were very bad to the Jews. They were very serious attacks upon the Jews. Probably the worst attacks that happened to the Jewish people before the Holocaust were through the Ukrainians, Cossacks in the Ukraine. And the Ukrainians are not ashamed of this. The people who led these attacks are national heroes, not because they attacked the Jews, but the national heroes because in addition to killing the Jews, they also fought for the Ukrainian independence. At all events, we have no affinity with them, even though there are a large number of people, Ukrainians, not from now in Israel. They're not only the Jews, only people of Jewish descent, but according to the law of the Jewish law, anyone who had a Jewish grandmother or grandfather can come to Israel and receive citizenship. And not in every case is this applied, but such a law is on the books, and they allowed a lot of Ukrainians to come through this paragraph, through this law. And then we have tens of them, maybe hundreds of thousands of Russians, hundreds of thousands Russians and Ukrainians and people from that area of the world who are not Jewish, living in Israel. And most of them are okay. They get on, they work, they want to get by. That's all they're interested in, making a living, surviving like everyone else. But some of them are actually anti-Semitic. I once saw a Ukrainian, one of these Ukrainians, possibly Ukrainian, I'm not sure, Ukrainian or Russians, practicing karate in a public park, and he had a swastika tattooed on his neck, showing that he belonged to a neo-Nazi organization in Israel, in the center of Jerusalem, in the major park in Jerusalem. So you have this, and this is known. This is a phenomenon. The Israeli press doesn't speak about it very often because they don't want to cause problems. It's policy is not to stress these negative features in order not to make trouble. But it exists. It is known about. So this is so in our opinion, these people are not descended from Israelites. They're from other elements, alien elements. And what they're doing, that's their own opinion. Russia, from a geopolitical point of view, Russia has a claim on the areas that she's claiming because they're populated by Russians or by people who speak Russian and whose sympathies are for Russia to a great degree. And Russia needs, for its own security, it needs that region. Russia historically needs that area, needs dominance over that area. And the Ukrainians and the West and people in Poland, people in Germany want to weaken Russia. It's also part of a big game. And the Ukrainians in the middle, they are pawns of other policies, of other powers. And so who is in the right, who is really in the right and who isn't, that's a complicated question. Yeah. We would rather not take sides and and it's does not concern us really.
What I've been studying on it, Yair, that I just wanted to throw at you is that, according to Dr. Hay, who is, of course, one of the well-known Bible scholars, Ukraine is, in the Bible, the tribe of Media. And what's interesting is that in Isaiah 21:2, we have the following statement that says, and interesting with what's happening today, a distressing vision is declared to me. This is from the New King James. The treacherous dealer deals treacherously, and the plunderer plunders. Go up, O Elam, which is Poland and Czechoslovakia. Besiege, O Media, all its signs Sighing, S-I-G-H-I-N-G, I have made to cease. So, it's interesting to note that Ukraine is basically a tribe of media. And given this prophecy in Isaiah 21:2, it seems quite interesting. What it's saying here: a distressing vision is declared to me. The treacherous dealer deals treacherously, and the plunderer plunders. Go up, O Elam. And Elam, the tribe of Elam, is pretty well known by a number of scholars as being both Poland and Czechoslovakia. So I just wondered if you've been, just to throw that out as something that I've been keeping an eye on anyway.
Okay, it's worth noting. It's also interesting. The says the lost and tribes will take one of the places the lost and tribes will take into Welsh media, the cities and the Medes. So if we say the lost and tribes move to the west, so the fact, as you say, there are indications that the Medes also moved to Europe. The lost and tribes were amongst them, so they would have been part of that migration, migrating process. It stands to reason. It's interesting. Another point that I saw somewhere that they say that the Baltic languages, especially Latvian, is supposed to be similar to the language of the Medes, which could somehow tie in with what you were saying. It's so that's what we have. Now we're going to. We said we are concentrating on the on the tribes and the different tribes of Israel. We mentioned that the USA today is a major Israelite nation, and all of the tribes that are found in the USA. And we identify the 13 original states of the USA with the 13 tribes of Israel. There are actually 13 tribes of Israel when you count the 2 tribes of Joseph from Manasseh separate states, and you include Levi. You have actually 13 tribes. So you have 13 tribes, you have 13 colonies representing the 13 tribes of Israel, and all the rest of the USA states, American states, somehow or other connected to the original 13. And we say that the USA on the whole is dominated by the tribes of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, but within that domination, within that overall influence belonging to Joseph, receiving the blessings of Joseph, they also have individual tribes amongst them, the representatives of the individual tribes amongst them. And in some states, the influence of these individual tribes, or certain individual tribes, is more felt than in others. So we can also trace these different each state to one or other of the other tribes, as well as having an overall pertinence to
the Manasseh in Hebrew means forgetfulness. Do you see that manifested in the United States a lot?
Yes, because the United States, the whole theme of the United States when it was founded was for the people to come up, to begin, to start a new beginning. You're the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired and the poor, your struggling masses yearning to be free. People, the whole idea of America was to come over, to start anew, to be liberated from the past. Also, the concept of the American dream to anyone to start with nothing and build themselves up. Sometimes in their own lifetime, sometimes in the lifetime of their descendants. This is all part of what America stood for. So it's connected. It's connected to this whole idea, and that also connected to forgetfulness. We also mentioned that Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch mentions that what's the whole idea of a forgetfulness? You don't really forget anything. You have the expression "slipped your mind." You have it up there. It's there, but it's moved. It's moved. You can't locate it, but you know it's up there. You never really forget anything, but it moves. And that's how the whole thing of forgetfulness. Forgetfulness, the word forgetfulness in Hebrew is Manasseh, is Nashia. Nashia, that's the root, also the root of Manasseh. You also have the idea of what is it? Connect something that moves, but it's still connected to its original source. A Noshe. A Noshe is someone who lends you money. Well, it means he gives you the money, but he's not forgetting about it. He still has a claim on you. He still has a connection to you. That money gives him a claim on you. It's something of you. It's a Noshe. Also, you have the idea of women. Women in the plural in Hebrew, you have Isha, Ish and Isha. You have man and woman. This is Rabbi Shimon ben Raphael. Ish, Isha. Isha is a female of the Ish, yeah? But in the plural, instead of saying Ishot, the plural of Nashim of women is Nashim. Why does Nashim, why does it say Nashim? It's the same word as a use for creditor. Because the women, he says the women as a group, they don't want to represent themselves. They want their husbands to represent them, the males to represent them, but they still have a claim on them. They still have to be responsible to them. Therefore, the women are like creditors, like people who put their faith in their husbands, but expect their husbands to act as they should do, to be responsible to them. And so this is the idea of Manasseh. Joseph gave the name Manasseh this name. What's the connection of Joseph? Why did he give this name Manasseh to his son? Because all the troubles he had gone through, how his brothers had been, he dreamt these dreams and they've been jealous of him. They sold him as a slave, and then he was accused of rape, falsely accused of rape. And then he was in jail. And then he became here and there, and then he became the king of the country, but he had to keep his identity secret. And this went on for years until he met up with the brothers. And he said that all of his problem, all this thing was for a purpose. That it was a purpose, and God was leading him, keeping him connected with what was going on for a purpose. That was what Manasseh means. So we have this whole thing. In other words, Manasseh literally means responsible representation. And how did the USA come into being? They said no taxation without representation. The Boston Tea Party. They had no taxation without representation. That was the whole thing, the whole rebellion against Britain. They started killing each other, killing their kith and kin. Have this principle, to assert this principle, no taxation without representation. Representation. Responsible representation, the whole thing of the US Constitution, which is very important to Americans. Much more important than other countries. In other countries have constitutions, but no one considers they're sacred like they do in America, because of the American Constitution, American principles are something intrinsic to the American character, and it helps the purpose of America is Manasseh. The name of Manasseh means this. Okay, so that's what we have about Manasseh. This is a point. And we also had similar in Britain. We have the idea of Ephraim. We identify Britain with Ephraim. In Hebrew, the word for Ephraim means fruitful, also means powerful, like a bull. But also another connotation of Ephraim is aristocracy. In Hebrew, we have Ephrathi or Ephrasi, depends how you express it, how you pronounce the word. Ephrathi means an aristocrat, someone who dwells in a palace. An aristocrat also means someone from Ephraim. It's the adjective for someone from Ephraim. The noun, that's a type of noun for someone from Ephraim. Is an Ephrathi, because all of Ephraim used to act like aristocrats. And in England, you still have the principle of aristocracy. And aristocracy is still important in England, where you're born, how you're born. My father came from Britain. My father and mother came from Britain and migrated to Australia. It cost them £10 then. So about $1,000 today, but it was still cheap. It took us 6 weeks on a ship to sail from England to Australia. Went through the Suez Canal. I remember that it was what happened. My parents came from Britain. They went to Australia. I was born. When I was 3 years old, the situation in Australia was difficult, so they returned to Britain. 3 years later, they decided to go back to Australia. The situation had picked up. So they did this deal. You paid £10 and you got a 6-week ship on a ship through the Mediterranean, through the Suez Canal, all the way to Australia. It was an Italian boat. I remember that. Anyway, that's it. So what was the principle? Anyway, getting back to the subject. One of the reasons my father left England was because He said in England you have to belong to someone. We have to. It depends where you were born, what station you were born in, and if you haven't got enough money to maintain a certain station, you feel you're not pulling your weight. You don't really fit in. And so you have this whole thing in England. You have this whole thing of hierarchy. And even that also in Australia, you have it to a certain degree. Australia also belongs to Ephraim. They have it in a similar way, but it's different. But the thing is, when you come here, you probably never noticed it. They also have this in the USA. Certain people belong to Ephraim and so on. You have some people, meet some people, and they start asking you questions and so on. They're trying to figure out who you are, where you fit in their hierarchy. Are you above them, below them, alongside them? And ask all kinds of questions just to try and place you. And they're not necessarily conscious that they're doing this. It's automatic with them. Whereas with someone from America, usually Americans are interested in what you are worth, what you're worth to me, what you're worth to others. The here and now. Americans are more interested in the here and now. They're more practical. And you have, and every country has its own way of evaluating people that they meet, and this means of evaluation reflects on their tribal culture. And you could make a whole science. You could develop a whole science made on this, and whatever. So it's all theoretical, but it has something to back itself up. Very often in practical terms, it substantiates itself. We also find differences between Benjamin and Judah. People from Benjamin, also similar to those from Ephraim, and people from France, also similar. Europe, you have Reuben. Reuben. What was Reuben? Reuben was the firstborn. Reuben was the firstborn son, but because he acted irregularly with his fathers, with Bilhah, the concubine of his father, it was demoted. Yeah, Reuben was demoted, and Joseph was made the firstborn in his place. But you can look it up in the Bible, look at the concordance. Every place where you find the name Reuben, which a lot of places, Reuben is mentioned very often, in half those places, in half the times, 50% of the times when Reuben is mentioned, it says Reuben the firstborn. Reuben was the firstborn. Reuben was the firstborn. But he's not the firstborn. Yeah, he's already been demoted. Joseph is the firstborn. So why does King mention Reuben was the firstborn? Because this was the attitude of a firstborn. Reuben had the characteristics of the firstborn. What are the characteristics of the firstborn? We identify the Reuben as being amongst the French. What characteristics do the French have? First of all, the French are Latin people from Roman civilization, and they have something of Latin characteristics. Latin things are logical. Analyze the things from a logical structure, and also things they expect things to be things to be as they should be. You know, what does that mean? The things to be as they should be. It means that I am the firstborn. I come to the place I should be given the respect due to the firstborn person. And things should be organized in a certain way, in a logical structure. 1, 2, 3. That is the attitude of the French. And a lot of times it works. And the French are very good at things like this. Also, the outward show. The Rua son, the very name Reuben means Rua. So look, a new son is born. The outward appearance is very important to them. So this is something concerning the French. They have the attitude of a firstborn son, even though in practice, and also in practice, they weren't always giving the respect that they thought should be given unto them. There were times in history when they were. Under Charlemagne actually had found the Holy Roman Empire. Actually, his empire was centered in Germany, but he himself came from the Franks of France, and he was more French than German. And when he died, the empire was split up, and it became more centered in the Holy Roman Empire. But First of all, so we had Charlemagne. The first empire was from the Franks, who were from Reuben. And we had Louis XIV under the French kings. They were dominant throughout Europe, or always trying to be dominant, challenging whoever was dominant. And under Louis XIV and afterwards, they led the role. They led the way in cultural matters, in other ways, in thoughts and philosophy. And they had the French Revolution, which started the whole modern era. The French Revolution, they overthrew the existing order, and they how does it say, liberty, equality, fraternity. They were the principles of the French. And then coming out of the French Revolution, you had Napoleon. Napoleon took the principles of the French Revolution and he applied them to his empire. And everywhere he went throughout Europe, he conquered a good portion of Europe, in Italy, Spain, all over Europe, Poland, Germany. He introduced reforms. He reformed everywhere he went. And then he tried to conquer Russia, and he was defeated. And then he was put exiled, and he came back from exile, and he was demoted. But they couldn't turn the clock back. A lot of the reforms that he introduced stayed. Also, he liberated the Jews. He let the Jews out of the ghettos. He believed in the principles of the French Revolution, and much of the modern world begins from Napoleon. Even the rationalization, the regularization. Then in certain areas used to have all different coinages, all different ways of measurement. He introduced a metric system, which is much more logical, much more easier, makes civilization much more easier. If everywhere, all over Europe, they use a metric system because a meter is a meter everywhere. It's not a yard here, half a yard there, a furlong there. You don't have to make all kinds of computations, complications of different measurements. Thanks to Napoleon, we have regularization. And this is a principle of the firstborn, that things should be regulated. Laid down 1, 2, 3, 4 from the very beginning, like a textbook, like a manual. So that was Reuben. That was the attitude of Reuben. And each of the tribes also has their similarities. We have everyone has their similarities. Everyone has their individual traits. Another individual that we find shows strong traits is Gad. We identify Gad with the Swedes, people in Sweden. Also, the elements of Gad are in a lot of different places, in Britain, in Ireland, in Europe. But Gad dominated Sweden. And the Sweden was founded with the Swea, also known as Sweons. And the Goths were united. And they created the kingdom of Sweden. And the different tribes in Scandinavia, and also especially in Sweden, such as the Heralds from Harali, one of the clans of the Goths. Also Harodi from Harudi, another clan of the Goths. And different clans of Gad are found amongst different elements who lived in that area. And the very name Goth in Hebrew is another way of pronouncing the word Gad. Gad in Hebrew also still found amongst the Yemenite Jews. The Yemenite Jews are also in part descended from those tribes of Israel. Some of them were returned, but most of them are from Judah. But they have an ancient way of pronouncing Hebrew, and some of them pronounce the word Gad as Goth. And also Ashkenazi Jews also once pronounced it that way. Now, the Gad is another way of pronouncing the word Goth, or the opposite. Goth is another way of pronouncing the word Gad. And what is the word Gad? Gad means group. Gad Gadud. When Leah, the mother of Gad, gave him his name, she had Gad Gadud. A whole group of people are coming. The whole thing, the collective. Gad means a group of people. And we look at and you look this up on the internet. That's what we did. The characteristics of Swedish people in the eyes of themselves. How do they view themselves? They all more or less say the same thing. They say that the people in Sweden, they don't like leadership. They don't like someone asserting themselves like they do in Germany, in America, everywhere else. They prefer to sit around, talk things over, and from the group will emerge decisions, to reach a consensus. And that is the whole life is built on this. And this is an element of God. This is a characteristic of God. And it still exists today. It is, so this is interesting. And and so on, throughout each and every tribe has its own characteristics. And we find them in the Swedes, we find them in other tribes. We have Levi, we find Levi, especially amongst the Jews, with a portion of the Levites went to Wales and went to other areas also. In Italy, we find the descendants of Levi, and the Levites helped give rise to the Druids in England, the pagan priests. Also, there were the pagans of the Baal in the land of Israel, and they gave rise to the Druids in Britain. And the proofs of this, the Druids used to worship a god called Baal, as the same way as the Canaanite priests in the land of Israel worship Baal, and they had similar practices to the Canaanite religion and also to the Israelite religion. They had conflated the two, they had synthesized the two. So if anyone has any summarization to make. Sylvia, would you like to say something? Sylvia.
Yeah, just wondering about Wales. And my grandfather was quite a singer, and my father loved to sing too. And I wonder whether could be a trait of Levi.
Probably could be. Yeah, you're right. The Welsh love to sing. So you can go on the YouTube. I recommend. It only takes a couple of minutes to go on YouTube and put on the Welsh national anthem as played at a football match. You have tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
At Welsh football matches, and all singing in tune. This Welsh national anthem, which I don't understand because I don't know Welsh, but it's very beautiful music. They have this musical quality,
right,
very high standard, and they're known for it. They also belong to all kinds of choirs and things. So there's a lot of them make a lot of this is a factor of Welsh civilization. Also, the Welsh language, according to books that we have, it has a basis, Hebrew basis. Has Hebrew origins. Doesn't mean it's the same as the Hebrew language, but it has strong similarities to Hebrew, showing that it was built on a Hebrew or structure or something very similar to it, which is also proof of these people belonging to Israel. Right. And the Welsh on the whole, we also find amongst the Welsh, we find people from Manasseh, people from Ephraim. They're a mixture. We don't, but as you say, the were legends, actually, Jewish legends, the descendants of Moses were in that area or in that region, and the descendants of Moses belonged to the tribe of Levi. So that's the point we have.
And wasn't the Levite choir? I mean, the choir in the temple is Levites.
The task of the Levites was to the task of the Levites. One of the tasks of these Levites was to serve in the tabernacle, to serve in the temple, and then a choir, singers, and also a choir of instruments.
Yes.
And this was one of their central tasks that they did have, that they were known for, that they learned. Spent a long time learning it. That whole period of apprenticeship. And this was something of national importance.
Also
responsible for it.
The characteristic of teaching.
Yeah, that's right. There were also teachers. There had to be teachers. There had to be lawgivers, administrators. It says in Deuteronomy 17. That's another point, another proof we have of the Bible, in effect. The Bible says you have a problem. Yeah, Deuteronomy 17. You have a problem. So, like, this is the law, gives you the law, write down this and that and that. And he says, but it's not clear. A lot of things are not clear. They're not certain. He says you have a problem. You don't know what to do. You don't know something is pure, something is impure. You don't know what the law is. Something is guilty of death, not guilty of death. Yeah, you have a problem. You have to get up and go to it's in Hebrew. In Hebrew it says you have to go to the priest. There is the Kohen. But the Kohens and the Levites were from the tribe of Levi. You have to go to the Kohen, the Levi, and the judge who will be in those times. In other words, he assumes that this is not a commandment. This is describing the reality. You will have to go to the place of judgment, and in the place of judgment you will find a Cohen, a Levi, and a judge. Okay? So you have the Talmud, and you have the Jewish lawmakers. What happened? You have the Talmud and the Jewish lawmakers, and you have throughout the centuries, and the Jews have law books, and you need rabbis to learn these law books. You have people who write the law books and decide what the law is. And only certain books are accepted, and who accepts them are accepted by the community. I mean, anyone can write a book. Not anyone, but anyone who learns something, knows something, he can write a book. But if the book is going to be accepted or not, that's another story. You have people who learn the Torah, okay? But you have people learn Torah, you people who go to yeshivot. I live amongst people, I live in an ultra-Orthodox community, I know people learn all day long, people learn yeshivot, and some people learn all day long. And if you have, say, 100 people, say 100 people, and 10 or 8 or 10 of them are the Levites or Cohens, say, yeah?
Are
and
you a Levite?
What?
Are you a Levite?
Say amongst ultra-Orthodox Jews, there are a bit more Levites and Cohens than ordinary Jews, so maybe 8%, 10% of them are from the tribe of Levi, yeah? Typically.
I meant you personally. Do you think that you're a Levite?
My grandfather was, but
Very
whether
good.
I am from my mother's side, whether I am or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, but I took an interest in it. And I noticed, as I did my own surveys, statistics, and I checked up in other sources on this interesting point. Again, this point is interesting. You have 10% Levites, okay, and then 10% of them learning. And then you go up another study. You have a 10% out of these, 10% out of these 100 Levites, these 100 Jews are all learning. Maybe 20% of them write books. Okay, the ones who write books will have a higher percentage of Levites amongst them. And amongst these books who are written, you have books which will be considered the last word on the subject, the ultimate authority. And these are the people who write them, are the rabbis you have to go to. And these books will last for generations, hundreds of years. They will be the authorities, and about 50% or more of these books, ultimate authority, are authored by people from the tribe of Levi.
Mhm.
So this is what the Bible. This is how in Leviticus it says you go to the priest, to the Cohen, to Levi, and the judge who will be in those days. It is indicating that the dominant people, the people who will come to before, who will be able to give the law, will be from the tribe of Levi. Just to make a clarification, the law, a lot of Jews study the law. Studying the law doesn't mean you know what the law, what the judgment should be. That's another subject. The law has many applications, has many intricate things to understand, philosophy, a lot of things. And just because someone is a great rabbi and learns the law doesn't mean he knows what the legal decision should be. That requires a specific type of person, and this specific type of person is found more amongst Levites than amongst other people, relatively speaking. And this is a proof of the Bible. And so it's an proof in itself. It's a proof of the Bible. The Bible said this, and it described the situation that will be in the future, and this is the situation we find. Right.
And remember who you are.
Okay, so God willing, we'll get it fixed. We'll have other talks also on the interesting subjects.
Thank you for your time, brother.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everybody.
much for being